Hey everyone, welcome back to Convention Circuit Entertainer Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott J. Carroll. This week, we're sitting down with a filmmaker, an actor, and a wrestler, and a very good friend of mine. Please welcome Doc Gracie. Doc,
You had to throw in that last part, huh?
I did, because now you can't tell all the bad stories about me. I said you were a friend.
I'm okay, fine.
So how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? It's good to see you.
It is. It's good to see you, and hopefully we get to see each other again soon.
Yes.
So Doc, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Like you said, I'm a independent filmmaker, actor. I've done a couple of movies. Did a Lifetime movie one time. A couple things you can see on Amazon, and primarily for the past 2 years now, a professional wrestler.
So, real quick, before we head on to that, the Lifetime movie, was Meredith Baxter Birney in it?
Honestly, don't remember.
Man, you almost had the Lifetime pin. I would have given you the pin for that.
I honestly do not remember. That was a weird time, man. I had just quit working a day job, started going pursuing entertainment stuff full time, and that was my first gig.
Oh man, the first gigs are always the weirdest. They really are. My first gig, I actually got one working for ABC, and
Yep.
so there was Disney money involved, and like the holding tent was incredible. And then my next gig was one of the worst. So I think I started from like really good and then went to a weird spot.
Dude, the one I did was weird. I was just meant to be like a background extra, and I ended up being like the primary drunk at the bar of the where a lot of scenes in this film take place in, and was still just supposed to be just one of the patrons of the bar. But for some reason, the director liked something about me to the point that he put me like front and center on the bar. He actually gave me a character name. As a matter of fact, he actually named the character after my actual last name.
Nice.
And then had a couple scenes where I was really featured well in it. And then funny enough, in post-production I didn't know this until it aired, but in post-production on the movie, they actually had someone dub in a line for my character while he's off screen.
Oh no. Oh, you know what? It's cheaper to pay the ADR guys.
Yeah. But I mean, it was fun though. I can't complain about it.
Yeah. Well, a similar thing happened. I did some work on Astronaut Wives Club, and they had me come back for a few episodes. My official title was Nerdy AV Geek. And every time they were at NASA, I was in there with you'd see me in the background, like running projectors, hitting buttons. But we're not here to talk about our war stories. We're here to talk about you. And let's start off. Let's talk about some wrestling. Tell me what just what? Just tell me what.
What? Man, it's weird how it happened. Like, I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. It was my favorite thing of all time. And very much so as a small child, it was kind of like that first thing I ever wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, then as, I entered adulthood, I discovered other hobbies like playing music, eventually doing film, things like that. And not only that, just there weren't really any opportunities for me to because wrestling's hard, or at least it used to be a much harder business to get into. And I had no clue how to do it. So I kind of reached a point where I figured that goal kind of passed me by.
Mm-hmm.
I was okay with it because I was doing all this other stuff. But then through my film company, Tiley Films, I know you just recently had my wife on, we got the opportunity to produce a 30-minute wrestling television show for the local Fox affiliate here where we live. And that kind of, all of a sudden now I'm around the business. And funny enough, I really wasn't even a fan of it anymore when we started doing the show. But now all of a sudden I was around it all the time, and just a bunch of wacky stuff happened that just led to all of a sudden one day I'm standing inside a ring looking around going, how did I get here?
That always seems to be how it happens. And that's always the best part of the story. It's you doing something, wacky things happen, and now you're there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I remember walking out for my first match. there was only like 50 people in the building. But it's like, it might as well have been like 50,000. Because I was so nervous. I was so scared. I'm sitting there. I'm a rookie having his first match in his early 30s. And it's just like that's not the norm, you know? And I'm just like walking to the ring the whole time, trying to act cool, trying to act confident, but inside going, what are you doing here? Dude, just leave. There's no one here. No one's going to know.
Man, imposter syndrome is real. Like, I mean, as you know, I do a lot of theater, and when you're standing center stage and you've got a full house and you're looking out and you're going, oh, okay, this is weird. It is weird, but it's also like one of the best feelings ever.
Yeah, like especially like when you like for me, even still now, that imposter syndrome thing's still there. And it's like I'll be backstage like at the curtain waiting to go out for a match, and just my heart is racing. I feel like I'm about to drop of a heart attack, and I'm just like, what? Why are you? How did you get here? Like at this point, I'm a champion in 2 companies at this point. Like I've done some things and accomplished, some things on a smaller scale, but I'm still just standing there going, why are you? What are you? How did you get here? How did this happen? And then it's just like the music hits and we walk out. And it's still just kind of like I'm looking at all the people and I'm still just kind of like, you're about to make a fool of yourself. You can't do this. But then with the ring, it's this really weird thing where like when I step through the ropes, it's almost like walking through a portal, And it just like, that's where like, as soon as I step through the ropes, that's the point where the normal everyday man just kind of finally just shuts up and lets the performer take over.
You're absolutely right. Every single time I'm backstage and I'm behind curtain waiting for a show to start, those butterflies are there. The nerves are still there. And I've been doing theater for years now. And one thing I learned, you mentioned you feel kind of silly going out there, but if you don't feel silly, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And it comes through in the performance. So you mentioned you're a champion. So let's actually talk about what you wrestle and how you wrestle. Tell me just a little bit about that.
Well, I'm primarily a tag team wrestler. That admittedly started out when I was first going to debut. When I was like first got roped into wrestling a match, it was supposed to just be a one-time deal. Like, because I was producing the TV show at the time. I was actually one of the primary cameramen on the floor. And I just got roped in this situation where they wanted the cameraman to have a match against this guy that beat him up. And I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. I've seen non-wrestlers have matches before. They're terrible. I would very much like to wait and like maybe learn how to do this halfway okay before getting in there. And then like as a further thing to kind of make me feel comfortable, my best friend Nate Moss, who wrestled for this company, they paired me with him. And we're like, all right, we're going to do this as a tag team match. And like I said, at first it was so that Nate could kind of keep me from looking foolish. He could kind of be there so that it still halfway looked like a coherent wrestling match. And that was the reason for the pairing in the very beginning. Once it slowly morphed into this being what I do full time, it was just kind of like, we get along really well, even outside the ring, and we work really well together in the ring. Let's make it go with this. And, because there's like, especially in independent wrestling, oftentimes tag teams in independent wrestling are just 2 individual wrestlers just paired together because you need a tag match on the show. Not a whole lot of guys that are actually putting themselves out there as a team. And so we decided to go the tag team route, and I think we're doing all right with it so far.
Well, you mentioned, so your tag team is called the Daybreakers, right?
The Daybreakers. So funny story about that. We actually, because we're so creative, and again, my film company that my wife and I own is called Ty Lee Films. For the first match we tagged together, our tag team name was Ty Lee. Just because we couldn't think of anything else. Like, we didn't know what we were going to do. We were just like 2 buddies going out and doing it. But then we were doing the show. There was a veteran wrestler from our area he was looking to have his retirement match. And he was a wrestler from back like 70s, 80s, something like that. But his ring name was the Outlaw Eddie Breen. And they wanted to do a retirement show for him, and they decided to theme this whole show around him and call it Outlaw's Last Stand. Hearing a name like that, we instantly got Western vibes.
Right.
And I had actually just recently worked a con as a guest liaison, taking care of Roger Clark and Rob Weedoff, who voiced Arthur Morgan and John Marston in Red Dead Redemption 2. Had just finished hanging out with those guys, and of course was a big fan of the game in general.
So it's a great game, beautiful game.
Yeah, as was Nate, and Nate's just a hardcore Western buff anyway. So after me hanging out with Roger and Rob, I go back to Nate and I'm like, "Hey, we got this Western show coming up. I wonder if they let us just for like a one-off, since it's a Western theme. Let us dress as cowboys for it, just as a example." And we go to the promoter thinking, honestly, he's not going to go for it, but he just looks and he's like, I could actually see y'all being an actual tag team like that. We're like, what, you mean like all the time? And he's like, yeah, I think that could work. And so he decides that we're going to be Old West Cowboys. And we took the name from a Louis L'Amour book and just, became Marshall, Nate Moss, and Doc Gracie.
And you guys have been doing great. So I always wondered, because like you, I loved wrestling as a kid. I loved watching it. And it always looked like it hurt so bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do you guys keep from getting really hurt?
Honestly, it's a large part of it. As crazy as this is going to sound, it's honestly just going to be trusting the guy that you're in there with. You both have the goal of, stealing the show, getting the win, whatever you want to say about it, or whatever your intentions may be on it. But at the same time, it's like you're trusting that you're going to be responsible enough to make everything you do impactful. Mm-hmm. And, give as much legitimacy to what you do as possible, but make sure that guy is able to go home. And yeah, as far as how you don't get hurt yourself, it's honestly, it's putting trust in the guy you're in there with.
So we actually have a clip that you sent us with some of your wrestling. So why don't we go ahead and give that a watch?
All right.
Gracie returns the favor with a big shoulder takedown of his own. What in the world?
Took legal action. The board agreed, and we stripped them of the Elevate Pro Continental Cup Championship.
They're isolating their man. They're isolating their man in the corner. We've got him turned all the way upside down.
Fans that might be confused, these are called Tornado Tag Team rules, where all the teams are participating at the same time.
Oh my goodness! Oh, a bulldog! Huge.
A opponent can come in there. You can blow your kneecaps off.
I will reiterate it one more time. I've seen them kill him.
So the other guy we saw in the video, that was your partner, Nate.
Yeah, it was, of course. By the way, I intentionally threw in that vignette just for the clip of Brittany Nicole at the end saying, "I will reiterate again, I've seen them kill a man."
But yeah, it looks like you're having fun out there, and I have immense respect for people who do this, because it's incredibly difficult. It's physically demanding, and it takes a toll on you. And you're like you said, a champion. So again, I'm not wearing one, but I will tip my hat to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're currently the Continental Cup Tag Team Champions of Elevate Pro, which is based out of New Orleans area. And we're also the Redeemed Wrestling Tag Team Champions for Redeemed Wrestling, based out of Wyatt, Mississippi. Kind of started doing this thing where we're branching out to other promotions and taking their championships everywhere we go. So that's
Well, now if they're going to watch this, they're going to say, I don't know. Yeah, we'll take them.
Yeah, and they're fine. Besides, apparently they'll shoot me if we say no.
I like that. That's going to be your guys' tagline. The Daybreakers. Yeah, they're fine.
That's what we've been missing. We've been trying to say best tag team in the Gulf South. No, we need to just change it to that. Thank you.
Fine. But glad I could help. I'll take 15%.
All right.
So
You're cheap.
you also mentioned that you worked as a guest liaison. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What is it like being a guest liaison at conventions?
It can be either one of the greatest, kind of experiences to have at a Comic-Con, or in some cases, depending on who you're with, some of the worst. Doing it has, fortunately allowed me to meet some pretty spectacular people who I've admired for most of my life, but it also gave me it gave me the first and honestly most harsh experiences of, don't meet your heroes. I've unfortunately, through doing guest liaison, I've had to have that disappointment before, but I mean, it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, you mentioned the don't meet your heroes thing. It's an unfortunate aspect, and because we see these people as the characters or what we know them from, but like Irene had said before, they're just people, right?
Yeah, they're just people. But at the same time, that even though by no means was this a negative experience, I'm just using this as an example, like a William Shatner. Like, even though William Shatner and Captain Kirk aren't the same guy, at the same time, if you're a huge Captain Kirk fan and you have a really bad experience like that with William Shatner, it can ruin the Captain Kirk character for you.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that didn't happen with him. I did work with him and he was fantastic, but just as an example.
Right, and that's what I've heard. So you've been liaisoning for a number of years. How'd you end up getting into it?
Irene. Irene. We weren't even a couple. We were just friends that were working together on a movie, and she was coming up. She had a con that she was about to be working, and they needed an extra person, and she was just like, "Hey, do you want to give this a shot?" And I'm like, "Sure." And ended up working Wizard World Comic-Con 2014 was my first Comic-Con.
So, like, when it's your first time as a liaison, is it like that weird kind of boot camp where they give you a shakedown of here's all the rules, here's what you have to do, and here's what you cannot do, or is it more like you're thrown into the fire and just hope for the best?
For that first time, especially with the people we were working for, very much the second scenario, like thrown into the fire. How about this for thrown into the fire? At that very first con, the primary person I was taking care of was Matt Smith in his first American Con appearance after leaving Doctor Who.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was his very first time working a con in the States after leaving the show. And my rookie self was the one having to take care of it.
That's insane. Like, what was that like?
Busy. We did, like, there was not a single moment to stop the entire weekend. I mean, even the photo ops area, like it was nonstop the entire time. The at his autograph table, like you were moving pretty much like until we went past like what was supposed to be his cutoff almost every single signing he did.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much until there was no more time. Like, okay, we got to get him to the next thing now.
Right.
Like there was no real time for him to even stop and break for a lot of that con.
So as a performer, like I performed at conventions, and I know it can be incredibly exhausting when you're at a table and then go have to do a show. And for you guys, it has to be even more so exhausting, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. For sure, because it's like, besides that, we, part of our job is to take as many stresses off of the actor as humanly possible, which, can mean a number of things. One of the things it could possibly mean is sometimes if you have an attendee that is being a little too extra, you kind of have to be the one to like step in and be the bad guy in that situation. You're in some cases you're organizing the table as far as making sure their photos, everything are all straight. In some cases, you're collecting the money as people are paying for these autographs. Oftentimes, you're also working as a security guard, especially if there's no actual con worker or real security guard nearby. And then, you get some people that, you're not allowed to take candid photos of them. So you're also having to watch for people with their phones out. It's a pretty exhausting job.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, at least with the security and bouncer part, now you've got your wrestlings that you can kind of at least intimidate people as they're coming up.
I was told I was scary looking anyway, but
we didn't want to tell you to your face. We just thought it would be nicer, but somebody already told you. So
everybody else tells me.
Oh, I was trying to be nice.
I told a family member recently when they commented at a funeral about how ugly I looked.
Really?
Yes. Yes, real story. They came and just like, you just get uglier every time I see you. And I'm like, look, I'm 35 years old, bro.
That's not fair.
5 years. If it hasn't changed yet, it's not going to. I've made peace with it. Why can't you?
I think the nicest way I was ever told I was ugly was by a casting director who said, "You're unconventionally handsome." What does that mean? But all that aside, so when you're working at conventions, you get to hang out backstage with the guests a lot. Have you ever had any crazy stories or crazy experiences with that?
Well, I was told that my wife told the infamous Nashville bathroom story last week, so we'll forego that one. Probably one of the wildest things I could tell you, though, it didn't actually happen in the green room or at the building the convention was in, but it was a part of one weekend I had working a con. I'm going to leave this actress's name out of the story.
Probably a good idea.
Well, when you hear it, you'll know it's a good idea. But I was working with one particular actress at a con once, and then absolutely just wonderful, sweet person. She was just as great as she could be. She's acted in a few things that if I named her off or named what she was in, people would probably figure out who I'm talking about. The other thing about her, she was a former Playboy model. She did an issue or two. I don't know how many of Playboy. And for starters, all weekend at her autograph table, her spread on her table was nothing but her Playboy layout.
Oh no!
I'm looking at her like, there are children here, and there's nothing covered on any of these photos. It's just all hanging out, and I'm like, little kids are walking by. What are we doing here? And then and she's sitting there like, some fans will walk up, it's like, I don't know what to get. And like my wife is right over here, so I'm trying not to let myself be seen staring at these photos. Like fans are coming up not knowing which one to get, and she's looking at me like, which one do you think they should get? And I'm just like, looking away going, that one. Just making sure like I'm covering myself. But there was on the second day of the show, at the end of the day, I can't remember what led to it, but we ended up giving her a ride back to her hotel. Me and my wife in our car, we take her back to her hotel. And when we get there, she asks me if I would help her bring her stuff up to her room, which I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. Tell my wife's like, I'll be right back. And we go up, I take her stuff up. The other thing to keep in mind about this girl is all throughout the day, I was constantly taking her phone for her and taking pictures of her with cosplayers, people that had built stuff, like taking photos for her Instagram. She's big into her Instagram. And I get up, I get her stuff in the room, and she's just like, can we do a couple more like photos for my Instagram before you go? I'm not going to have anyone here the rest of the night. I'm like, yeah, I got you. No problem. She's like, okay, I'm going to go get out of this real quick, which I'm taking as, okay, she's going to go change. She's been in the same thing all day, whatever. So I'm waiting in kind of like the living room or common room area of her suite. She comes out wearing nothing at all. Like not even a ponytail holder. Just completely just butt naked.
And I like how that qualifies as an article of clothing.
She didn't have nothing closer to that.
Oh my God.
She just comes out completely naked, and I'm like, "My wife is downstairs in the car." I'm thinking that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I'm the kind of people this thing happens to." But then to make it even worse, she's standing there in front of me completely nude, and she's like, "Let's go out on the balcony and take them." And I'm like, "You mean where people can see?" And I had to sit there and act like it was not awkward, taking nude photos for this woman's Instagram. Go downstairs, and as I'm going downstairs, I'm debating to myself. On the one hand, I'm like, I got to tell my wife what just happened. But on the other hand, I'm like, she is not going to believe this at all. She is going to think I made this up.
What? Although, knowing Irene and the amount of conventions that she's worked, I'm willing to bet she believed you.
Oh, no, she fully believed it. As soon as I got in the car, I'm like, babe, okay, I just need to go on ahead and get this out there. But nothing happened.
Oh, that's great. That is great. I'm looking at the clock. I'm being told we got to wrap it up, which is unfortunate because I know we have more stories, but we do have to follow rules, unfortunately. So,
second round sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where can the people see you? Where can they see your stuff and your wrestling and all that?
You can catch me on SWA Championship Wrestling and Elevate Pro Resurgence, both of which air on the Fight TV app on demand. Pretty much for the SWA show, most of the state you can catch that show in. I think we've got coverage in about 2/3 of the state at this point, as well as some Arkansas and Alabama. And, like I said, with the Fight TV app, you can catch us pretty much anywhere on demand. New episodes drop every 2 weeks. But
any big events coming up?
We got a show coming up on May 8th for Elevate Pro. We're defending the Continental Cup against these two guys called the Russell Twins. It's their third attempt. They're gonna fail again, but it's
fine.
It's a hard-headed dude. But yeah, other than that, like I said, Fight TV for everything that I'm doing. I really appreciate you having me on. Let me talk about the stuff a little bit.
Oh, anytime. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Always a pleasure to see you. And hopefully we will see each other physically again in person and have more fun that we can't talk about on here. In the meantime, on behalf of my friend Doc, I am your host, Scott J. Carroll. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time on the Entertainer Spotlight.
Take care.